I'm having to sell you something based on what we're trying to do. I don't now. Thing comes up. Paint job on Duke is such a good one. I didn't.
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to bring this. This was actually just a compliment about your going back to some of the Wave 1 of G.I. Joe that just came out. I thought it was a good point.
Yeah, I mean, and then we've got an issue with Wave 2 of G.I. Joe where the faces weren't painted for some reason, and we're still mystery on that one why the skin tone wasn't painted on it. It's painted on Wave 1. It's painted on Wave 3, which you guys don't have yet, but we have. Our samples are painted of Wave 2, but apparently what shipped does not have painted faces. And so while they match, it's just not, unfortunately, there's always something that happens. And
I'd like to get to my question because it directly pertains to that. You said during I think it was a Pixel Dan interview, you expressed this fear of being not being conscientious enough of the people who buy Super 7 figures and inadvertently making them inaccessible, or I don't know quite the word, but that your main goal wasn't for people that they couldn't collect it or wouldn't have access to it or anything like that. And it's been over a year now since that interview, and there's been, like you said, you're getting it now. There's this abundant amount of customers that they kind of tell you about the QC issues, and they tell you about how, they won't either hire QC or lower prices or whatever. Like, how do you address the conflict between what the customers are saying to you, loyal customers, and your perceived notion of what Ultimates has to be?
It's a fine line. I mean, there is a line that I also have to take when it's like, how many, the first thing you have to do with criticism and go, is it valid? Is it warranted? And I think I've said this before too, which is the only reason people are criticizing something or complaining about it, not always, but in most cases, we're assuming most people are generally altruistic about this, is because they care. And they had a very distinct idea of what they were getting and what they wanted. And if it isn't exactly what they thought it was, they get upset. And so the first thing I have to look at is, with that critique, is it valid? Now, sometimes it is. A lot of times it's not. And I'm not trying to dismiss somebody's critique, but a lot of times it's just, I want to be angry, and so I'm going to be angry. And I have to take that into account. Like, all right, how many of these things did I sell? Let's make up a round number for argument's sake. We'll say we sold 1,000 of them. And there's 15 guys that are furious, just furious about it. But the other 985 guys are stoked. Well, I don't know that maybe they're right, or maybe there was nothing I could do that was going to make those 15 guys happy. I'm not sure. But when things are legitimately wrong, we've gone out of our way to fix them. Things like Triclops' head and the visor not moving correctly when it got glued into place, we sent replacement heads. When the hands were wrong on NJPW, we sent replacement hands. Like, we'll fix it if it's legitimately wrong.
Yeah.
At the same time, when you get into then you get into the more esoteric points about people's complaints, which is, whether it's a certain kind of articulation, a certain kind of finish, or a certain kind of accessory, that becomes much more about opinion. And I try to take that with a grain of salt, but there's a certain point which is, well, this is the version